Hello, and welcome. Today we delve into a story that redefines the very limits of human ingenuity and industrial possibility, the astonishing rapid construction of Liberty ships during World War II. Imagine a cargo vessel over 400 feet long, weighing more than 28 million pounds, assembled in just days instead of months. How was it possible to build a ship in just 4 days, when traditional methods took nearly a year? Could ordinary workers, many with no maritime experience, learn to weld, assemble, and launch massive ships in mere weeks? What revolutionary techniques allowed this unprecedented feat, techniques so radical that they challenged centuries-old craftsmanship standards? And what if I told you that the entire shift was driven by one man's bold vision to replace riveting with welding, and to treat shipbuilding as a factory process rather than a craft? All these questions point to a single truth. The story of these ships is not just about wartime logistics but about a profound transformation in manufacturing, driven by innovation, organization, and daring leadership. The remarkable speed, the unprecedented workforce, and the stunning efficiency weren't accidents. They were the result of a systemic revolution that reshaped industries forever. And now, the journey begins, right here, with the first chapter of the greatest industrial leap in modern history. On the brisk morning of November the 12th, in the year 1942, the bustling industrial landscape of Richmond, California, was the stage for a remarkable event that would soon reverberate throughout history. Amidst the cold, gray dawn, a massive cargo ship, measuring precisely 441 feet in length and boasting a staggering weight of over 28,490,000 pounds, stood poised at the dock. This colossal vessel was ready to be launched into the waters of San Francisco Bay, passing through the gates of the Permanente Metals Corporation's Shipyard No. 2. What made this feat extraordinary was the astonishing speed of its assembly. In a mere 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes, this ship had been fully constructed. To put this into perspective, in the days before the American Revolution, constructing a vessel of comparable size typically required anywhere from 6 to 8 months, often involving veteran shipwrights and seasoned craftsmen. Yet here, in the midst of global conflict and urgent wartime production, a complete Liberty ship stood prepared for immediate service. An assembly of over 1,000 workers, who had only recently learned the craft of shipbuilding, gradually stepped back from the hull of the SS Robert E. Peary. Among these workers were not traditional shipbuilders, no seasoned maritime artisans or experienced deckhands, but rather a diverse group of individuals including former secretaries, farmers, housewives, and laborers. Most had learned the intricacies of welding and basic ship assembly only weeks before. The crowd gathered around was filled with officials, journalists, and competing shipyard owners, all witnesses to a groundbreaking event that symbolized a fundamental transformation in American manufacturing. This was more than just the construction of another vessel. It marked the dawn of a systematic revolution in industrial production, driven by innovation and new technological approaches. The significance of what was unfolding in Richmond resonated far beyond the shipyard. It was a shift that would echo through decades of manufacturing history. The mathematics behind the Allied victory in World War II was now being written not solely on the battlefield but in the detailed statistics of production. Factories were surpassing previously held beliefs about the limits of shipbuilding, shrinking what had once been considered impossible in terms of construction timeframes, industrial capability, and efficiency. This incredible transformation had its roots in an event several years earlier, on December 27, 1940, when a man named Henry J. Kaiser signed his first shipbuilding contract. Prior to this, Kaiser had never built a ship nor managed a shipyard. His career had been entirely dedicated to moving earth, dredging and pouring concrete for large dam projects across the American West. Yet at the age of 58, this construction magnate boldly promised to the United States Maritime Commission that he would, within 2 years, deliver 30 cargo vessels to support the war effort for the British government. Many traditional shipbuilders scoffed at Kaiser's audacity. The historic Todd Iron Works, among the oldest and most respected shipyards in America, was hesitant at first, reluctantly agreeing to partner with Kaiser on the project. They believed that their extensive experience and expertise would compensate for what they viewed as Kaiser's inexperience in shipbuilding. However, none of them comprehended that Kaiser's lack of conventional background would actually serve as his greatest advantage. His outsider's perspective allowed him to approach the task with fresh ideas and a willingness to challenge established norms. Among the many observers was William Francis Gibbs, one of America's most esteemed naval architects. His firm, Gibbs & Cox, had designed the original plans for the Liberty ships, models inspired by British designs and adapted to American needs. Gibbs had designed more ships than Kaiser had likely seen in his entire lifetime. The journey from initial skepticism to revolutionary innovation began within the planning offices at Todd Shipyards in New York. As Kaiser and his team of engineers closely examined traditional shipbuilding procedures in early 1941, it became clear almost immediately that conventional methods could never meet the urgent wartime demands. Kaiser's chief engineer, Clay Bedford, had recently visited the assembly line of the Ford Motor Company in Detroit, an industrial marvel of the era, just weeks before. There, he had watched automobile chassis moving swiftly down a conveyor belt, with workers at each station installing prefabricated components with remarkable speed and precision. Inspired by this groundbreaking approach, Bedford returned to California convinced that ships could be built in a similar fashion. Instead of relying solely on traditional shipyard techniques, he envisioned a factory-based, assembly line process that could significantly cut down construction time. However, the conventional shipbuilders viewed this comparison with skepticism, dismissing it as naive and impractical. They believed that ships, complex and massive as they were, could not be simplified or standardized in the same way that automobiles were. In their eyes, the idea of mass-producing ships on assembly lines was nothing more than an unrealistic fantasy. Nevertheless, Kaiser's vision and Bedford's insight set the stage for one of the most innovative shifts in manufacturing history, a transformation. The very first shock to the naval establishment and shipbuilding community came with the bold proposal put forward by William Kaiser to completely abandon the age-old method of riveting in ship construction. For centuries, the process of assembling ships depended heavily on riveting, a technique involving the heating of metal pins, or rivets, which were then hammered through overlapping steel plates to securely join them together. This method, though labor-intensive and time-consuming, had been the standard for building virtually all large ships, from ancient wooden vessels to modern steel-hulled ships, due to its proven durability and reliability. Under ideal conditions, a highly skilled and well-coordinated team of riveters could manage to install around 100 rivets each day, working tirelessly with precision. Given the immense size of ships like the Liberty, ships, a critical component of the wartime logistics effort, such vessels required approximately 1 million rivets each when constructed using traditional methods. The sheer scale of this operation meant that constructing even a handful of these ships could take many months, if not longer, which was a significant bottleneck during the urgent needs of wartime. Kaiser, however, proposed a revolutionary shift, replacing the tried-and-true riveting technique with electric arc welding, a method he had become familiar with and perfected through his extensive experience in pipeline construction across the vast American West. This approach was untested on such a large scale in shipbuilding, yet Kaiser believed that welding could drastically reduce construction time, lower costs, and simplify the assembly process. His confidence stemmed from his technical background and successes in other industries, but it also defied the conventional wisdom held by seasoned maritime engineers. The reaction from the highest levels of the U.S. Maritime Authority was one of deep suspicion. Vice Admiral Emory Land, who served as chairman of the United States Maritime Commission, scrutinized Kaiser's proposal with a cautious and somewhat skeptical eye. Internal correspondence preserved in the National Archives, offering a rare glimpse into the mind of a cautious administrator, revealed that many experts doubted the feasibility of welding on the scale Kaiser envisioned. They argued that welding had never been conclusively proven to be reliable enough for hull construction of such monstrous ships, where safety and durability were paramount. In fact, the British Royal Navy, with its extensive experience in shipbuilding and wartime operations, officially prohibited welding on the hulls of their warships. This restriction underscored the level of concern regarding welding's long-term strength and integrity under harsh ocean conditions. The United States Navy harbored similar reservations, viewing improved welding technology as too risky to adopt for vital military vessels. Considering that Kaiser was proposing to rely heavily on this untested technique, a gamble that could jeopardize supply lines and naval safety, the proposal met with considerable debate. However, amidst the growing urgency of the conflict, even the skeptics recognized that the situation was desperate and that traditional methods alone might not suffice. The German U-boat and surface raider threat was sinking Allied ships at an alarming rate, faster than the Allied shipyards could replace them. In the year of 1941, alone, roughly 3,600,000 tons of Allied shipping had been lost to enemy action, attrition, or accidents, the majority of which were ocean-going cargo vessels and tankers. Britain, heavily reliant on maritime trade for survival, was effectively starving due to this relentless loss of shipping. Ordinary American shipyards, which had yet to adopt wartime efficiencies, typically required an average of about 230 days to build a single cargo ship through conventional construction methods. Given the accelerated pace of wartime needs and the mounting losses at sea, such a timeline was unacceptable. If the process did not speed up, the Allies risked losing the Battle of the Atlantic, the crucial struggle to control the vital supply routes, before American industry could fully mobilize and adapt to the unprecedented demands. Faced with this stark reality, the decision was made to approve Kaiser's contract, not because there was complete confidence in his improved welding techniques, but because there was no viable alternative. It was a matter of necessity rather than certainty. Between January and December of 1941, the Richmond shipyard, an empty plot of mud flats and swampy land near the James River, began to rise from its desolate state, transforming into a center of revolutionary shipbuilding innovation. Kaiser's construction crews, who were primarily experienced in building dams, highways, and large-scale infrastructure projects, set to work establishing a facility that would horrify traditional maritime engineers. Unlike established shipyards, which relied on massive gantry cranes and long, linear building ways designed specifically for ship assembly, the Richmond yard adopted an entirely different approach. It was laid out more akin to an automobile assembly plant, an unprecedented concept in the world of shipbuilding. The layout comprised open areas designated for the prefabrication of large sections, which would later be assembled into complete ships. Surrounding this core were 7 parallel building ways, large, flat platforms designed for the rapid assembly of these prefabricated modules. Rail tracks crossing the transfer of skills from father to son is a time-honored tradition, passed down through generations, often shaping the very fabric of a community's craftsmanship and expertise. In the context of wartime industrial expansion, a revolutionary approach to workforce development was pioneered by Henry Kaiser, who recognized that traditional training methods for skilled trades, such as welding, were too slow and insufficient to meet the urgent demands of wartime shipbuilding. To rapidly expand his workforce, Kaiser launched an aggressive advertising campaign across newspapers throughout the United States, confidently offering wages that were 20% higher than the standard industrial rates of the time. His promise was clear. Anyone willing to work could be trained, regardless of prior experience or background, making the process of skill acquisition more accessible and appealing to a broad spectrum of applicants. The first groups of workers eager to seize this opportunity began arriving in Richmond, Virginia, in August of 1941. Kaiser's method was groundbreaking. He simplified the complex and painstaking tasks of shipbuilding into repetitive, straightforward operations, a technique borrowed directly from assembly line manufacturing principles. This approach proved to be astonishingly effective, fundamentally transforming traditional shipbuilding practices. By October of 1941, Kaiser's Richmond facility had grown to employ over 10,000 workers, with fewer than 200 of them having any prior maritime experience. This stark contrast with traditional shipbuilding was profound. Traditionally, welders spent 4 years as apprentices, acquiring a comprehensive set of skills through rigorous, lengthy training. They learned every aspect of the craft, from structural welding to intricate repairs, often dedicating nearly half a decade to perfect their craft. In stark opposition, Kaiser's instructors focused on delivering targeted, task-specific training. Within approximately 2 weeks, workers learned precise techniques for welding specific parts, such as vertical seams on bulkheads, horizontal deck plates, or curved sections of hulls that they would repeatedly work on. The emphasis was not on mastering the entire shipbuilding process but on excelling in particular tasks, enabling workers to become highly proficient at specific, repeatable operations in a remarkably short period. As the workforce gained experience through late 1941 and into early 1942, an unexpected and astonishing phenomenon unfolded. The timeline for constructing Liberty ships began to decrease at an extraordinary rate. The first Liberty ship built at Kaiser's Richmond yard took an impressive 197 days from start to finish. The second ship, constructed under the same streamlined process, was completed in just 169 days. By the time Kaiser's fifth Liberty ship was completed, the construction period had shrunk to 128 days. Impressively, the 10th ship was delivered in only 97 days, less than half the time taken for the earliest vessels. By the spring of 1942, the crew at Richmond was routinely building Liberty ships in an average of about 70 days each, a feat that surpassed traditional expectations and previous records. Traditional shipyards, observing these rapid improvements, grew increasingly alarmed. Their highly skilled, unionized crews were accustomed to meticulous, sequential construction processes that took months to complete. In contrast, Kaiser's workforce, largely untrained by traditional standards, was achieving production speeds that matched or even exceeded those of the most advanced and experienced shipyards. The secret lay in reimagining the entire manufacturing process, prefabrication. Instead of following the conventional methodology of assembling ships from keel to deck in a strict sequence, Kaiser's yards fabricated entire sections of ships simultaneously across various parts of the facility. While one team was busy assembling the bow section in the prefabrication area, other crews worked in parallel on the stern, deckhouses, engine rooms, and bulkheads. Once these sections were fully prepared, Massive cranes were employed to lift and position them onto the ship's framework laid out on the building ways. Welders and assembly crews then joined these sections together, creating a continuous, rapid construction process. Albert Wooding, who served as the production supervisor at Richmond Yard No. 2, provided a detailed explanation of this revolutionary method in a 1943 interview with Fortune magazine. He pointed out that in traditional shipbuilding, the process was inherently sequential. The engine could not be installed until the engine room was completely built. The engine room could not be constructed until the hull was finished. This step-by-step approach meant that progress was linear, with each phase dependent on the completion of the previous one. Kaiser's innovative approach flipped this sequence on its head by enabling parallel production. While one team was welding hull plates in one area, another was simultaneously assembling the engine in a separate section of the yard. When both components were ready, they could be effortlessly brought together, fitting the ready engine into the completed engine room, which was welded onto the ship's structure. Tasks that traditionally took weeks, such as installing engines, could now be completed in mere hours. The efficiency of this method was staggering. What once required a dedicated crew of 50 workers working in cramped and partially finished spaces over a span of 3 weeks could now be accomplished by a crew of 200 workers over just 5 days, utilizing cranes. And imagine a scenario where an entire ship assembly could be completed within a single, tightly scheduled 8-hour window, a feat that was as astonishing as it was disruptive to the long-standing traditions of maritime construction. This bold approach was part of a broader shift that unsettled many of the classic maritime authorities, who had grown accustomed to meticulous, time-honored practices honed over centuries. Historically, ships had always been constructed according to carefully detailed blueprints that left little room for ambiguity. Every element was specified with precision, ensuring consistency and safety. In stark contrast, Kaiser's approach to shipbuilding involved using simplified drawings, rough sketches that provided only the fundamental measurements and dimensions, leaving many of the finer details to the judgment and spontaneity of the individual workers. To traditional shipbuilders and engineers, this method seemed reckless, almost reckless enough to compromise quality and safety. They believed that skipping these detailed specifications could lead to inconsistent, inferior ships that might jeopardize maritime safety and standards. Kaiser, however, defended his methods by emphasizing the importance of flexibility. He argued that such simplifications allowed for quicker production and adaptation, which was crucial amid the pressing demands of wartime manufacturing. At the outset, many officials, including high-ranking naval officers such as Vice Admiral Howard Vickery, who served as the vice chairman of the Maritime Commission and had a distinguished career in the Navy, initially opposed Kaiser's relaxed standards. Vickery, a seasoned officer committed to safety and precision, viewed the simplified plans with skepticism and concern. Yet, as time went on, the results of Kaiser's innovative approach began to speak for themselves. The proof of effectiveness gradually persuaded even the most cautious critics, as documented in official records from commission meetings that revealed a transformation. Vickery, once a staunch opponent of the simplified specifications, ultimately became a supporter. His change of stance illustrated a fundamental lesson: that results often carry more weight than rigid adherence to theory. Back in January of the year 2042, I personally opposed Kaiser's plea to further reduce the level of detail in the drawing specifications. I believed that ships required the highest degree of accuracy for safety and effectiveness. After all, ships are not cars. Unlike automobiles, which are manufactured with standardized parts and precise engineering, maritime construction demands meticulous precision due to the complexities of seaworthiness, safety, and durability. However, by March of that same year, Kaiser's shipyards had begun to demonstrate a remarkable breakthrough. They were outproducing our traditional contractors by approximately 40%. This startling surge in productivity was not merely a fleeting anomaly, it marked a fundamental shift. By June, the gap in output had expanded even further, reaching around 70%. It became increasingly clear that the idea of perfection, while noble, was often an enemy of efficiency. What I came to understand was that striving for absolute perfection might hinder timely delivery. Kaiser's ships, though not necessarily the most beautiful or refined in appearance, were sufficiently well built to meet the demands of wartime logistics. Their adequacy, in many ways, proved to be more valuable. Ships that were built quickly and efficiently could deliver more cargo, more swiftly, than ships that were crafted with an obsessive focus on perfection but still remained under construction. As the pace of construction accelerated over the spring and summer months of the year 2042, a spirited competition arose among Kaiser's 7 shipyards scattered across the Pacific coast, spanning California, Oregon, and Washington. This wasn't merely about numbers. It was a contest fueled by ambitious individuals seeking to outdo one another and to demonstrate their yard's superior speed and efficiency. Kaiser's son, Edgar Kaiser, served as vice president and general manager, with direct oversight over all the shipyards, particularly those in the Pacific Northwest region. Edgar managed the Oregon Shipbuilding Corporation located in Portland, while Clay Bedford supervised the Richmond yards in California. Both men were driven by a fierce determination and an innate competitive spirit, and they embarked on an informal, yet intense, rivalry to see which yard could build ships faster. Throughout the fall of 1942, this contest became a well-known spectacle, drawing significant public and media attention. The newspapers began reporting on the race as if it were a sporting event, providing updates and scores that chronicled each yard's progress. Records for ship construction times were broken repeatedly, with the momentum culminating in an extraordinary achievement in September. A ship named the Joseph N. Teal was constructed from the laying of its keel to the launch in just 10 days. This feat captivated the nation, showcasing the unprecedented speed and efficiency of mass production in wartime shipbuilding. Despite the demonstration of such rapid progress, Vice Admiral Vickery eventually decided to put an end to the unofficial competitions. He labeled them as mere stunt demonstrations that risked distracting workers and managers from the primary goal, maximizing overall production. Nevertheless, the influence of the contests was profound. They had successfully instilled a mentality among workers across all 7 yards. That extraordinary speed was not just a possibility, but an expectation. The challenge was no longer whether the project was carefully designed to ensure that it would not interfere with the regular flow of ongoing production schedules. This meticulous planning was crucial to maintain operational stability while pushing the boundaries of rapid shipbuilding. For this ambitious record attempt, Bedford chose the 47th hull to be constructed at Yard No. 2. The vessel was to be christened the SS Robert E. Peary in honor of the renowned Arctic explorer, reflecting the ship's intended purpose and spirit of adventure. Beginning at exactly 1 minute past midnight on Sunday, November the 8th, a grand and highly synchronized operation was set in motion. Over 1,000 workers, divided into precisely coordinated shifts, prepared to undertake an unprecedented feat in maritime history. This collective effort was orchestrated with such precision that it aimed to shatter long-held beliefs about the time required for building a ship of this magnitude. The prefabrication approach, which had been an innovative strategy from the start, reached its most advanced stage during the construction of the pier. Every key component of the vessel had been meticulously manufactured, inspected, and staged well in advance of the keel laying, ensuring a seamless assembly process. The bow section, which consisted of more than 50 individual steel pieces, had already been completely welded together and fitted with essential hardware such as anchors, chain lockers, and the crew quarters at the forward part of the ship before the assembly even commenced. This level of pre-assembly meant that the critical pieces were ready to be joined with minimal delay. Similarly, the stern section was fully equipped and included the completed steering gear, the propeller shaft, and the aft crew spaces. In addition, 4 substantial cargo holds, each one a massive rectangular steel structure, had been carefully weighted and positioned to ensure proper balance and stability once lifted into place. The engine, a formidable triple-expansion steam power plant weighing in at around 140 tons, had been fabricated by Joshua Hendy Iron Works in Sunnyvale. It had been mounted onto its foundation and rigorously tested before being transported to the site, ensuring it was ready to be installed and operational immediately. While traditional shipyards typically took months to construct vessels from the keel upward, relying on sequential building stages from keystone to deck, Kaiser's yards revolutionized this process by assembling almost complete ships from prefabricated sections in mere days. In fact, by the end of the 4th day, the hull was fully assembled, the engine was installed, deckhouses had been positioned, cargo holds secured, and the steering gear mounted, all within a span of just 4 days. On Thursday, the 12th of November, precisely 3 days after the hull's completion, at 3:30 in the afternoon, the SS Robert E. Peary was launched into San Francisco Bay. In just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes from the moment the keel was laid, the vessel gracefully slid down the launching rails, creating a new benchmark in maritime construction. Remarkably, the ship was ready for service by November the 15th, setting an additional record by reaching full operational status in a mere 7 days, 14 hours, and 32 minutes from keel laying to delivery. This extraordinary achievement drew a crowd of spectators that included maritime officials, military officers, representatives from competing shipyards, and journalists from across the United States. Many of these observers arrived skeptically, expecting to witness either a failure of the process or a vessel that looked complete but lacked the necessary functionality to be truly seaworthy. However, what they saw defied all expectations. The ship was fully operational, requiring only minor fitting out before entering active service. Its readiness was so advanced that it seemed practically prepared to sail immediately. Among those present at the launch was Vice Admiral Land, who offered brief remarks captured by newsreel cameras. His words resonated deeply within the maritime community, encapsulating the profound shift that had taken place. He stated, "In the past, I might have considered this impossible," acknowledging how revolutionary this accomplishment was in the context of traditional shipbuilding. For over 3,000 years, maritime construction wisdom had dictated that constructing a proper, seaworthy vessel could not realistically be achieved in less than 5 days. Yet, Henry Kaiser and his innovative methods had rendered that conventional wisdom obsolete. His groundbreaking approach had shown that with the right prefabrication techniques and meticulous planning, ships of significant size and complexity could be built much faster than anyone had previously believed possible. Such a dramatic demonstration of efficiency and innovation sent shockwaves through the established shipbuilding community. The impact on traditional yards was immediate and profound. The yards that had previously dismissed Kaiser as an inexperienced outsider now found themselves compelled to study his methods in an effort to understand how he had managed such an extraordinary feat. Notably, the president of New York Shipbuilding Corporation, one of America's oldest and most prestigious shipbuilding firms, even made a visit to examine the processes firsthand, signifying the weight of this technological breakthrough and the recognition that the industry could no longer afford to ignore these new techniques. In December of 1942, the industrial landscape surrounding Richmond was undergoing a profound transformation. The innovative approaches championed by Henry Kaiser had reached into the very core of maritime manufacturing, delivering a stark and revealing report to his board of directors. This confidential document laid bare the complete ideological shift that was sweeping through the industry, an acknowledgement that traditional shipbuilding methods, rooted in centuries-old craftsmanship and meticulous craftsmanship, had become obsolete in the face of new challenges. Kaiser had successfully achieved what prior industry leaders considered impossible. He had refused to accept the perceived limitations imposed by conventional wisdom. Instead of adhering to the long-held notions of shipbuilding as an unchangeable craft, he approached it as a rational manufacturing process. Kaiser's methodology was revolutionary in its simplicity and boldness. He deliberately stripped away unnecessary complexities where others sought perfection. He implemented standardization across the board, replacing the bespoke, highly intricate components with uniform parts that could be mass-produced with ease. Instead of cultivating generations-spanning expertise and craftsmanship, he prioritized rapid training of large numbers of unskilled or semi-skilled workers. This approach allowed for an unprecedented scale of workforce mobilization and significantly cut down production times. The results of Kaiser's innovative philosophy were staggering. Ships that once took many months, sometimes even a year or longer, to be constructed, were now being built at a fraction of that time, about 1/10 of the original duration. Moreover, these ships cost approximately 2/3 less than traditionally constructed vessels. Such efficiencies meant that the nation's maritime capabilities expanded exponentially, forcing a reckoning within the industry. The only viable options were to adopt Kaiser's streamlined methods or face becoming irrelevant in the face of wartime demands. By early 1943, Kaiser's influence had not only shaken but completely transformed American maritime production. Across the country, 18 shipyards adopted these new principles, utilizing prefabrication techniques paired with welding, an approach that dramatically revolutionized shipbuilding. The once average construction period of around 230 days had shrunk to just 42 days by the middle of 1943. This acceleration in production meant that the United States was launching approximately 3 Liberty ships every single day. A staggering output that generated more tonnage than German submarines could sink, effectively shifting the strategic balance at sea. However, perhaps the most profound challenge to the traditional authority and craftsmanship of the maritime industry came from the very composition and skill level of Kaiser's workforce. The tens of thousands of women, minorities, and untrained workers who participated in building these ships stood as a direct repudiation of the old guild system, which had maintained a hierarchical and often insular approach to shipbuilding for centuries. At the peak of production in 1944, Kaiser's 7 shipyards employed approximately 196,000 workers, of whom over 40,000 were women, an impressive and unprecedented percentage of female industrial labor in that era. By mid-1944, women made up nearly 27% of the entire Richmond workforce, contributing significantly to the operation's success. The employment of women extended beyond mere numbers. It represented a fundamental shift in workplace demographics. The 3 Kaiser yards in the Pacific Northwest alone had more than 31,000 women working by the year 1944. Meanwhile, African American workers, numbering in the tens of thousands, were employed in skilled positions typically reserved for more experienced craftsmen. roles such as welding, fitting, crane operation, and even supervisory positions. This level of workplace integration was highly unusual for the 1940s, challenging the racial and social boundaries that had long characterized American industry. Kaiser's efforts in democratizing skilled labor carried implications far beyond wartime production and immediate strategic necessity. By demonstrating that complex manufacturing processes, once thought to require generations of apprenticeship and craft tradition, could be effectively executed by trained, non-specialist workers, his shipyards challenged the very core of long-held assumptions about labor, skill, and organizational hierarchy in the industrial sector. This redefinition of work signaled a broader societal shift, hinting at a future where the barriers to skilled employment could be lowered and industrial democratization expanded. The Christmas of 1943 offered a poignant illustration of Kaiser's transformed industrial culture. While traditional shipyards typically observed the holiday with a day or two of rest, Kaiser's facilities maintained continuous production schedules, not by simply demanding work, but by creating an environment that acknowledged and celebrated the sacrifices of their workers. At the Richmond yards, management arranged festive Christmas dinners served in the facility cafeterias, offering turkey, ham, and all the traditional accompaniments, complemented with free meals for workers on shift. Local churches sent carolers to lift spirits with song, and the Richmond Municipal Band performed seasonal music, further bolstering morale and community spirit. Kaiser himself made a personal appearance during this festive period, visiting the yards, shaking hands with workers, and expressing sincere gratitude for their dedication and hard work. Such gestures underscored a shift from the traditional hierarchical factory culture towards one characterized by recognition, community, and shared purpose. By mid-1944, the impact of Kaiser's revolutionary approach to shipbuilding extended well beyond the immediate confines of his own facilities, leaving an indelible mark on the maritime industry worldwide. During the peak years of World War II, the United States saw rapid and massive expansion of its merchant fleet, driven by an unprecedented scale of industrial effort. By this point, the 18 American shipyards engaged in constructing Liberty ships had cumulatively produced an astonishing 2,400 vessels, a feat that underscored the sheer magnitude of wartime industrial mobilization. These ships, designed for mass production, were supplemented from 1944 onward by the larger and faster Victory ships, an upgraded variant of the original Liberty design, both built on the same innovative principles of prefabrication and welding. This combined effort resulted in a colossal output that contributed significantly to the Allied logistical capabilities. In total, between 1941 and 1945, the United States produced more than 5,500 vessels, which translated into approximately 53 million tons of shipping. Such a level of industrial output was nothing short of staggering for the era and continues to be regarded as one of the most impressive feats of wartime manufacturing even today. Observers from the Royal Navy, including Commander Joseph Kenworthy, who was stationed in Washington and tasked with reporting to the British Admiralty delegation, closely scrutinized American shipbuilding efforts with a mixture of admiration and envy. His official dispatches to Admiralty, which were later declassified during the 1980s, provide a detailed account of how the British perceived American dominance in industrial capacity. The United States was producing merchant ships at a rate that far outstripped the combined output of the rest of the world. For instance, Kaiser shipyards alone was capable of producing more tonnage each month than the entire British shipbuilding industry managed to achieve in the same period. Although Kaiser's ships were not built with the elegance or craftsmanship traditionally associated with British naval architecture, they served their purpose. They floated, carried cargo, and in their thousands, formed a vital backbone of Allied logistics. While the British specialized in constructing the finest warships in the world through meticulous craftsmanship that often required years per vessel, Kaiser's approach prioritized speed and efficiency. The American ships, though perhaps less refined in appearance, were built quickly, adequately satisfying the demands of wartime production. When multiplied across thousands of units, this pragmatic approach ultimately overwhelmed the more refined but slower British methods. Perhaps most remarkable was what transpired after the war's conclusion. Conventional wisdom among wartime analysts predicted that the rapid shipbuilding boom would collapse almost immediately, leaving hundreds of thousands of workers unemployed and countless costly shipyards abandoned. This prophecy was only partly borne out. Liberty ship production officially ceased in September of 1945, but the reduction in Kaiser's workforce was dramatic. From a peak of 200,000 workers, the numbers plummeted to fewer than 20,000 by December. Similarly, the Richmond shipyards, which at their zenith employed around 100,000 workers, stood largely idle by the spring of 1946. Despite the contraction of wartime production, the technological innovations and processes developed during this emergency period did not fade away. Instead, the knowledge and skills cultivated, such as prefabrication techniques, welding procedures, and parallel assembly methods, became integral to post-war shipbuilding practices worldwide. When Japan and South Korea embarked on rebuilding their maritime industries during the 1950s and 60s, they studied Kaiser's Liberty ship program extensively, adopting and adapting its methods as the foundation of their own shipyards' development. The massive shipbuilding facilities established in Ulan, South Korea, and Nagasaki, Japan, facilities that would dominate global shipping construction for decades, were direct descendants of the pioneering practices established at Richmond. In a comprehensive analysis published in 1972, John Bunker, a distinguished professor of maritime history at the State University of New York Maritime College, summarized Kaiser's profound and lasting influence. He noted that Kaiser entered the shipbuilding industry as an outsider, ignorant of the prevailing traditions of maritime craftsmanship, unconstrained by conventional wisdom, and eager to apply manufacturing principles borrowed from other industries. This willingness to challenge and abandon established methods enabled the rapid and efficient assembly of ships at a scale previously thought impossible, ultimately transforming the landscape of maritime construction for generations to come. The shipbuilding industry had long been regarded as an area where rapid, large-scale production was considered inappropriate or even infeasible, primarily due to the complexities involved in constructing these massive vessels. However, in a span of just 36 months, an individual managed to oversee the construction of more ships than had been built throughout the entire previous century across the entire United States. This achievement was not merely a matter of quantity, but also a turning point that would transform the very methods and standards of ship manufacturing worldwide for the rest of the 20th century. The techniques that Kaiser introduced, namely modular construction, prefabrication, and welded assembly, are now fundamental principles universally adopted by modern shipyards. Today, whether a facility in Korea is assembling large container ships, a shipyard in Japan is constructing colossal oil tankers, or a European company is building luxurious cruise vessels, all rely on procedures derived from Kaiser's pioneering Liberty ship program. His innovations set the stage for the modern maritime industry, creating a legacy of efficiency and standardization. The profound impact of Kaiser's work can be appreciated through a range of statistics that highlight both the scale of his operation and its extraordinary success. Between 1941 and 1945, A total of 2,710 Liberty ships were produced across 18 different American shipyards. During the peak of the program, this equated to an astonishing average of 1.8 ships completed every single day. Remarkably, Kaiser's 7 yards alone were responsible for producing 1,490 ships, amounting to roughly 27% of the total American wartime merchant fleet built under the auspices of the Maritime Commission. One of the most striking aspects of this rapid construction was the significant reduction in the time required to complete each vessel. Initially, in 1941, the average ship took about 230 days to build. By 1943, that duration had plummeted to just 42 days. The record holder, the famous Robert E. Peary, achieved a remarkable feat, requiring only 4 days and 15 hours from keel laying to launch. This dramatic improvement was largely the result of labor efficiency gains as workers gained hands-on experience and became more proficient. Initially, constructing a Liberty ship demanded approximately 1,100,000 worker hours, but by 1943, that number had decreased to around 486,000 hours per ship. This efficiency was further enhanced in Kaiser's most productive yards, specifically Richmond Yards No. 2 and 3, which managed to build ships in as little as 350,000 worker hours. They achieved such rapid construction by operating on continuous 3-shift, 24-hour schedules and by maximizing the use of prefabricated sections. Cost efficiency paralleled schedule improvements. The first Liberty ships, built early in the program, cost between $1,750,000 and $2 million each. By 1943, costs had dropped to approximately $1,800,000 per ship, despite rising wages and increasing material prices, a clear indication that efficiency and learning effects were paying off. In terms of capacity, each Liberty ship displaced 14,245 tons when fully loaded. They could carry an impressive array of cargo, up to 10,800 tons, enough to transport 2,840 jeeps, 440 tanks, or an astonishing 230 million rounds of ammunition in a single voyage. Powered by triple expansion steam engines, an intentionally old-fashioned but proven and reliable design, the ships achieved modest speeds of around 11 knots, deemed sufficient for convoy operations across perilous waters. Training efficiency was equally impressive, reflecting Kaiser's innovative approach to workforce development. His maritime schools trained workers in specific tasks in an average of just 2 weeks. In the fastest cases, spot welders could be fully trained and productive in merely 10 days. More specialized roles, such as crane operators or ship fitters, required 4 to 6 weeks of instruction, significantly shorter than the traditional maritime apprenticeships, which lasted 4 years for basic competence and up to a decade to attain master craftsman status. The key difference lay in the approach. Traditional apprentices learned all aspects of shipbuilding comprehensively over an extended period, whereas Kaiser's workers specialized in specific, repeatable tasks that they would perform hundreds of times, dramatically speeding up the training process and increasing productivity. This method of focusing on specialization over comprehensive training not only expedited workforce readiness but also contributed to the overall success of the Liberty ship program, which became a crucial element in the Allied war effort. The reduced training times and high productivity rates helped ensure a steady flow of ships to meet wartime demands, ultimately saving countless lives and significantly shortening the conflict by maintaining vital supply lines across the Atlantic and beyond. The successful demonstration of the performance and durability of these ships, despite initial skepticism surrounding rapid construction methods, proved to be a significant achievement. During the wartime period, A total of approximately 2,710 Liberty ships were constructed, a remarkable feat considering the scale and speed of their production. Out of this fleet, around 200 vessels were lost due to enemy action, a loss rate of roughly 7.4%. When compared to the loss rates of merchant ships before the war, this figure was notably favorable, underscoring the resilience and seaworthiness of the welded construction technique, which had initially faced suspicion and skepticism. While the majority of Liberty ships proved reliable, some experienced structural failures, primarily due to welding defects that emerged during their service life. There were isolated instances where ships suffered catastrophic failure. Specifically, 3 Liberty vessels completely fractured in half as a result of brittle fracture problems. These incidents represented only about 0.11% of the total production. Despite this small percentage, nearly 1,490 similar brittle fractures were observed across the fleet. Fortunately, complete and catastrophic breaks remained rare occurrences. The lessons learned from these failures prompted significant improvements in welding procedures and steel specifications, which effectively eradicated the problem by the year 1944. The longevity of the Liberty ships ultimately reaffirmed the validity of Kaiser's construction methods. Originally designed as emergency vessels with a projected service life of merely 5 years, many ships proved to be surprisingly durable. A considerable number remained operational for decades beyond their intended lifespan, extensively serving in commercial capacities long after the end of the war. For example, the SS John W. Brown, constructed in 1942, continues to be an operational museum ship in Baltimore as of the year 2024, marking over 82 years since its initial launch. Similarly, the SS Jeremiah O'Brien, also built in 1942, is preserved in San Francisco and participated notably in the commemoration of D-Day's 50th anniversary in 1994. Intriguingly, it managed to sail under its own power to Normandy for this event, 50 years after it was first launched. Another Liberty vessel, the SS Hellas Liberty, now serves as a static museum ship located in Greece. Beyond their wartime utility, many Liberty ships found enduring post-war careers that extended well past their original design expectations. Out of approximately 2,510 ships that survived the conflict, around 835 remained in commercial operation into the 1960s. Numerous vessels were sold to foreign shipping companies, where they continued to operate into the 1970s. An exceptional example of post-war adaptation is the SS Albert MBO, which was the last Liberty ship constructed and delivered on October 30, 1945. Instead of being scrapped, it was sold in 1964 for $65,557, and a year later, it was transformed into the fish cannery ship Star of Kodiak. Today, it stands as the landlocked headquarters of Trident Seafoods in Kodiak, Alaska, a living testament to the ship's remarkable endurance, nearly 8 decades after its original construction. The economic impact stemming from the Liberty ship program extended far beyond the ships themselves, influencing the broader industrial landscape of the United States. The tremendous demand for steel to support wartime shipbuilding prompted a substantial expansion of steel production capacities across the country, especially on the West Coast. To meet this surge in demand, Kaiser built the Fontana Steel Mill in California specifically to supply steel for his shipyards. Completed in 1942, 5 months ahead of schedule, this facility produced around 700,000 tons of steel each year and marked California's emergence as a significant steel-producing region for the first time in its history. Moreover, The Kaiser Company established plants dedicated to manufacturing magnesium for incendiary bombs and aluminum for aircraft, integrating these facilities into the overall war production effort. The employment ripple effects of this industrial expansion were felt throughout communities across California, Oregon, and Washington states. For instance, the city of Richmond, California, experienced a dramatic population increase from about 23,000 residents in 1940 to over 100,000 residents by 1943, driven largely by wartime industrial employment. In Oregon, Kaiser developed Vanport City, an entirely new community built rapidly to accommodate shipyard workers, which briefly became a bustling hub of wartime activity, exemplifying the profound social and economic transformations triggered by the shipbuilding efforts. Was not an unchangeable truth but rather a set of assumptions that could be challenged and reshaped through innovation and decisive leadership. His approach showed that, with the right motivation and organizational strategies, industries could overcome seemingly insurmountable barriers and rapidly scale up their capabilities. This revolutionary mindset helped to shift the American industrial landscape, encouraging a more flexible and proactive attitude toward wartime production and beyond. The success of the Liberty Ship program underscored the importance of breaking down traditional bureaucratic hurdles, streamlining processes, and empowering workers with the necessary training and resources to excel under pressure. Furthermore, the impressive speed and scale of shipbuilding during this period provided a powerful proof of concept that large-scale industrial projects could be undertaken swiftly and efficiently when driven by clear objectives and coordinated effort. This experience not only bolstered national confidence in industrial resilience but also offered a blueprint for future rapid development initiatives in various sectors. The technological advances achieved through the Liberty Ship program extended well into civilian industries, transforming manufacturing processes across the country. The welding techniques refined under wartime conditions became standard practice in numerous fields, including the construction of structural steel frameworks, the fabrication of equipment for oil refining, and the manufacturing of pressure vessels used in various industrial applications. In addition, the innovative prefabrication methods pioneered at Richmond revolutionized building practices. These approaches enabled the rapid assembly of housing, bridges, and industrial facilities, fundamentally changing the pace and efficiency of construction industries. The organizational principles that emerged, such as parallel production lines, simplified design specifications, and accelerated worker training programs, became core concepts in operations management, laying the groundwork for modern industrial engineering and logistical planning. The influence of these innovations extended beyond immediate wartime needs, shaping the future of manufacturing and construction on a broad scale. Notably, the lessons learned and systems developed during this period provided a foundation for American industry's post-war growth, boosting competitiveness and adaptability in a rapidly changing global economy. In academic circles, the Liberty Ship effort has been recognized as a pivotal case study in rapid capability building. Harvard Business School's Professor Michael Porter, in a 25-year retrospective analysis of American industrial strength, identified the program as a prime example of how strategic investment, organizational ingenuity, and technological innovation can mobilize a nation's economic resources in a remarkably short time frame. Kaiser's leadership in this endeavor proved that the physical capacity to produce ships, or any critical infrastructure, was not inherently limited by existing resources or traditional practices. Instead, it was shaped by organizational frameworks, motivational strategies, and a clear sense of purpose. The United States, initially lacking the ability to build merchant ships at the scale necessary for wartime, transformed its entire industrial landscape within 2 years. By the end of that period, American shipyards were producing more tonnage than all other nations combined, a feat that underscored the extraordinary potential of well-organized industry. This achievement demonstrated that the perceived constraints on a nation's industrial capability often stem more from organizational and conceptual barriers than from fundamental physical or resource limitations. It made clear that with innovative management, strategic planning, and a shared sense of urgency, industries could be vastly more adaptable and capable than previously believed. The psychological impact of this transformation was equally profound. It reshaped the mindset of managers and engineers, inspiring a departure from traditional acceptance of production limits and encouraging experimentation with new organizational models. Kaiser's success showed that conventional wisdom about the fixed nature of manufacturing boundaries could be challenged, sparking a wave of innovation that extended beyond shipbuilding to other sectors of the economy. This shift in attitude helped establish a culture of resilience, adaptability, and continuous improvement that would serve the United States well in the decades to come. The narrative surrounding the rapid construction of Liberty ships during World War II is often heralded as a compelling testament to the extraordinary capabilities inherent within human endeavor and the profound impact of innovative industrial practices. At first glance, these ships played a pivotal role in securing Allied victory across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, yet their true significance extends far beyond their mere physical presence in wartime logistics. The story illustrates a fundamental and inspiring truth: that ordinary individuals, when equipped with proper training, given the right opportunities, and guided by innovative systems, can achieve results that once seemed impossible. Before this remarkable period, the construction of complex ships and various large-scale industrial products was traditionally reliant on long-standing craft traditions, often taking years or even decades to perfect. The conventional wisdom was that such intricate projects required meticulous manual labor, years of experience, and incremental improvements. But during the war, a revolutionary transformation took place, one that proved these existing assumptions to be flawed and outdated. Industrial processes, once resistant to rapid change for centuries, were revolutionized within months when driven by urgent necessity and inventive thinking. One of the most notable figures embodying this change was Admiral Chester Nimitz, who commanded the United States Pacific Fleet during the war. In his post-war memoir, published in the year of 1960, he reflected on the decisive role played by American maritime production. The United States fought across an immense 5,000-mile stretch of Pacific Ocean, a theater where the relentless construction of ships outpaced the enemy's ability to sink them. Japanese military strategists, confident in their understanding of American industrial strength, believed that by sinking enough ships, they could eventually cripple American logistics and force the United States into negotiations or surrender. However, their calculations failed to account for one crucial factor: Henry Kaiser. By the year of 1944, the industrial giant's shipyards were producing ships at a pace that exceeded their loss rate. This meant that the United States was not merely replacing ships as fast as they were lost. They were actually bolstering their fleet, gaining a surplus that undermined Japanese expectations and strategic assumptions. The simple mathematics of attrition made clear that the side capable of building 3 ships every day held the upper hand over the side sinking 2 ships daily. Consequently, victory in the Pacific War was determined more by industrial capacity and manufacturing efficiency than by sheer military valor or battlefield heroism. The decisive factor was the relentless, innovative effort taking place within shipyards located in cities such as Richmond, Portland, and Baltimore. These yards were the front lines of a manufacturing revolution that proved mass production techniques could be adapted to complex military hardware. The true triumph of Kaiser's efforts wasn't just in the staggering tally of 1,490 ships built, though that was impressive. It was in fundamentally transforming industry's perception of what was possible. For example, the construction of the Robert E. Peary in less than 5 days shattered assumptions about the time required for shipbuilding, serving as tangible evidence that traditional methods and conventional wisdom could be questioned, challenged, and vastly improved upon. This unprecedented feat highlighted the essential truth that tradition did not necessarily equate to truth, and that revolutionary progress often demands revolutionary approaches. The maritime establishment, which initially dismissed Kaiser as an outsider lacking in expertise or credibility in 1940, would spend decades after the war studying, adopting, and integrating his techniques into mainstream manufacturing paradigms. The skills cultivated by young workers, learning to weld, fit, and fabricate, became vital assets that fueled America's post-war economic recovery. These men, armed with new confidence and capabilities, carried their expertise into peaceful industries, laying the foundation for a burgeoning post-war economy. What began as wartime emergency measures, streamlined processes, innovative assembly line techniques, and a systematized approach to shipbuilding, became standard practices in civilian manufacturing, influencing industries across the globe. The story of how a single civilian entrepreneur's methods led to Liberty ships appearing in days rather than months exemplifies the power of demonstration and systemic change. It underscores a vital lesson: that the most profound revolutions often emerge from those unencumbered by tradition, willing to challenge and rethink accepted limits. This narrative makes it clear that progress is driven not by innate superiority but by a mindset that believes change is possible and by systems designed to realize that belief. Kaiser's workers were, in fact, ordinary individuals, clay that could be molded into extraordinary results, because someone dared to believe in their potential and organized processes that empowered them to demonstrate it. Ultimately, their achievements serve as a shining example of how human potential can be unlocked and expanded when innovation, organization, and conviction come together, transforming industries and rewriting the boundaries of what is deemed achievable. This extraordinary episode in industrial history exemplifies a timeless lesson, one that continues to resonate powerfully in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges across various sectors. The story unfolds within the bustling shipyards of Richmond, where a monumental achievement was realized: the construction of 2,710 ships in an astonishingly short span of time. This feat was meticulously documented and validated through the successful completion of each vessel, serving as enduring proof that the limits imposed by conventional thinking are often more perceived than real. Today, the legacy of the Liberty ships has largely faded. Most of these vessels were either dismantled and scrapped many decades ago or lie silently on ocean floors, serving as underwater monuments to that turbulent wartime era. Yet, the revolutionary spirit embodied by these ships continues to influence countless modern industries. The principles they exemplified, such as rapid prefabrication, streamlined production techniques, and innovative management, remain fundamental to contemporary shipbuilding and manufacturing processes worldwide. These lessons are embedded in training programs that prioritize teaching specific, practical skills swiftly, rather than forming workers into broadly skilled craftsmen over extended periods. They also underpin the mindset of managers and innovators who dare to question whether what is deemed impossible by traditional standards truly cannot be achieved, or if, perhaps, the challenge simply awaits a new approach. The enduring impact of Henry Kaiser's pioneering efforts is not merely etched in steel but deeply ingrained in a transformed understanding of human potential. His work demonstrates that when dedicated individuals are liberated from the constraints of outdated practices and are driven by a compelling necessity, they can achieve feats previously considered unattainable. From the moment in December of 1940 when he signed his very first contract, though he initially lacked any formal knowledge of shipbuilding, to November of 1942, when the Liberty ship Robert E. Peary was launched after less than 5 days of construction, Kaiser's journey exemplifies radical innovation. By September of 1945, the last of these remarkable vessels was delivered, marking the culmination of an unprecedented industrial movement. Kaiser's story underscores a profound truth. Significant industrial revolutions do not emerge from slow, incremental improvements but rather from revolutionary reimagining of what is achievable. Between 1941 and 1945, the construction of these 2,710 Liberty ships did more than facilitate the transportation of cargo across oceans. They served as living proof that human ingenuity, when freed from the shackles of tradition and driven by urgent necessity, can surmount the most daunting obstacles. Their legacy remains a testament to the extraordinary capacity of human creativity and perseverance, an inspiring reminder that, with boldness and innovation, what once seemed impossible can become an enduring reality.